Each of us is on a journey, and ours is to foster a Connecticut where everyone belongs. We're so thrilled you've come today to meet the Connecticut Age Well Collaborative, a statewide initiative to foster communities where we all thrive as we grow up and grow older. Our communities are stronger when they include the full scope of our energy, including the contributions of older people, people living with dementia, and people with disabilities. All of our minds and bodies are changing. This is our shared journey and opportunity. Join us in shaping a more inclusive Connecticut. I'm Melissa Norwood, Director of the Connecticut Age Well Collaborative, welcoming you to our virtual launch.
Good morning. My name is Amy Porter, and I'm the Commissioner for the Department of Aging and Disability Services. I'm so excited to be here with you this morning and really pleased to be working with Alyssa once again. You're going to hear much more from her about her work and the work of the collaborative, and I think you're going to be inspired to look at your communities from a new perspective. To begin our time together today, we want to take you on a little journey. It's a fun journey because we're going to celebrate an upcoming milestone birthday. Now, I can't see all of you, so I'm just going to trust that you're going to follow along with this exercise. So get comfortable in your seat, or if you're standing at your computer, get as comfortable as you can. Bring yourself a little closer to the front of your chair if you're sitting, and make sure your feet are planted firmly on the ground. Place your hands on your knees. Close your eyes. Take a few deep breaths in through the nose, out through the mouth. Now imagine that you're about to turn 80, 90, or 100 years. You get to pick the milestone, whichever one you want. And now imagine, how will you celebrate? Who is with you? Where are you? Are you indoors or outdoors? What time of day is it? What's the weather like? What are you doing? What are you wearing? How do you feel emotionally, physically? Do you feel gratitude? Just look around in your mind's eye and take it all in. Now take another deep breath in through the nose and out through the mouth. And when you're ready, come back to the webinar and open your eyes. So if anybody's willing to share your vision, maybe you could pop that into the chat, a little bit about who you are and where you were, what birthday you were celebrating. So do we have the raise hand function, Alyssa, on this webinar?
I'm not sure if we do. So if anyone wants to be the first to try, you can, but you can also, oh, yes, we do.
Okay, great. So maybe we can, by a show of hands, for those of you who aren't typing into chat right now, how many of you in this vision were in the hospital? How many were in a nursing home? How many were in some other kind of long-term care facility? Did any of you consider a life where you weren't living at home, even if it's a different home than you're living in now, or picture yourself in a place where you weren't able to travel? So this is a good exercise to get us started today when we think about livable communities and the work that we want to do together to foster livable communities. I'm going to talk a little bit about our state plan on aging. So every few years, we work with our communities and our partners to develop Connecticut's state plan on aging. Our current plan is called Building Bridges and Creating Connection, and it runs through September of 2023. We have three primary goals here. We want to look at long-term services and support where we can empower older adults to reside in the community setting of their choice. We want to focus on healthy aging, where we provide older adults with prevention and wellness opportunities. And we want to focus on elder rights to protect elder rights and well-being and prevent elder abuse, fraud, neglect, and exploitation. Today's session really focuses on goal number one, The success of our rebalancing efforts in Connecticut make it all the more important for municipal governments to thoughtfully, intentionally, and urgently plan communities that can support residents of all ages and abilities. So you're going to hear now from Alyssa about the Connecticut Age Well Collaborative and how they're designed to help us do just that. So Alyssa?
Thank you so much, Commissioner Porter. So welcome. This is our virtual launch. It's our space of getting to know each other. And it's a reinvigoration in addition to being a launch, because there were previous opportunities for you to get to know the Connecticut Age Well Collaborative. Some of you might have been at the Connecticut Association of Senior Center Personnel annual meeting last year, at which the Connecticut Age Well Collaborative released its Connecticut Healthy Aging Data Report. We're going to later in our Age Well Academy series focus on data in your communities. But for those of you who are interested now, we're going to drop a link in the chat and you can access your community's profile and learn more about the nature of your community. But in the meantime, I want to celebrate where we are now and why I'm calling this event a virtual launch and a reinvigoration, because we're here to go beyond data to practice. I mentioned earlier, the Connecticut Age Well Collaborative is a statewide cross-sector initiative, and our vision is to foster Connecticut communities that really support us across the lifespan and are places where we can all thrive as we grow up and grow older. So I want to draw your attention to our logo on the right, because at this moment of celebration, as we all learn together about the work of the Connecticut Age Well Collaborative and think about where we go, the logo really tells a story that I think is important in getting to know us. So the logo you see consists of ascending leaves, and it's the idea that vitality can happen across the lifespan. The leaves you can almost think of as different generations. The leaves are all diverse, but grow from the same stem, a reminder of our shared journey and connection. And the design is rounded and open to embody inclusivity and collaboration, and to emphasize that we all can age well. So this is who we are, and we hope that you'll join us as we define and grow and evolve together in a spirit of co-creation. So a little bit about our story. Again, I use the word reinvigoration because we're part of this long-standing narrative in Connecticut that really begins internationally. So for those of you who are familiar with age-friendly work, you'll know that back in 2007, the World Health Organization set forth this grand vision that at the time they called the Age-Friendly Cities Initiative, born of the fact that internationally demographics are changing significantly, and we're in an unprecedented time of opportunity, and that the proportion of older adults in the world is growing. We're all living longer and healthier lives. And as a result, our communities need to be prepared to embrace those changes. So in 2010, after a series of visioning exercises and research, the World Health Organization launched their global network of age-friendly cities and communities. You can learn more about it on the World Health Organization's website. And the United States manifestation of that work was and continues to be led by AARP, which launched in 2012 and continues to maintain its United States network of age-friendly states and communities. In Connecticut, in 2013, the Connecticut General Assembly empowered what's now the former Legislative Commission on Aging to establish a statewide livable communities initiative, really a result of the success of some of the work that Commissioner Porter mentioned of the state's leadership in supporting rebalancing, this idea that people increasingly, given the choice, want to receive long-term services and supports at home and in community where that's called for. In 2015, the Commission on Aging helped Connecticut celebrate international recognition through some work that was done in the city of New Haven around measuring livability. And then some time passed, and in 2020, the Connecticut Age Well Collaborative was established. There was a series of consolidations that resulted in the Commission on Aging, unfortunately, being eliminated and being folded into a larger, still robust and existing commission called the Commission on Women, Children, Seniors, Equity, and Opportunity, part of the legislative branch of government. All all of the statutory obligation under the statewide livable community statute still present, but the commission not with the same capacity to do that work before the consolidation. So the commission recently delegated via a memorandum of agreement to the Connecticut Age Well Collaborative leadership of the statewide livable communities initiative. So that's a little bit of the history that brought us to this moment. And we're really proud to be broadening our vision beyond thinking just about aging inclusivity, but also looking at issues of dementia and disability inclusivity. So how do we do this work? The Connecticut Age Well Collaborative uses a collective impact model. And you can see we proudly have over 20 organizations that are all part of our network who are working to advance learning together, aligning, integrating of actions to achieve populations and systems level change generally, but also specifically working to create aging, dementia, and disability inclusivity. We're proud of our partner network. It's growing. And if you're part of an organization where you think there might be synergy and opportunity for us to work together and formalize relationship, please feel free to reach out, and we're happy to invite you along on our journey. Before I talk a little bit more substantively about our work, I just wanted to celebrate our 4 core collective impact partners, beginning with our 2 primary funders. So this is work that's funded by both the state of Connecticut as well as philanthropy. So on the philanthropic side, the Point32 Health Foundation, which was formed recently by a combination of Harvard Pilgrim Healthcare and the Tufts Health Plan Foundation, is the only funder in New England that has dedicated focus on healthy aging. And we're proud to be part of a network of collaboratives across New England that all receive support from the Point32 Health Foundation as well. Thank you so much, Commissioner Porter, for your leadership and for the Connecticut Department of Aging and Disability Services support of the collaborative as a container for people to thrive in their journey through aging or living with a disability in their communities. We already mentioned at Wright, the Commission on Women, Children, Seniors, Equity and Opportunity is our partner, having delegated its statutory charge to the commission, to the Age Well Collaborative. And then finally, we celebrate Connecticut Community Care, which was the founder of the Connecticut Age Well Collaborative and our fiscal sponsor. Connecticut Community Care helps people of all ages, abilities, and ethnicities live their best lives at home with active and meaningful connection to their community. So I mentioned that we're in a really interesting time in terms of shifting demographics, and I'm going to let the Aging in an Aging America project share more about what that means.
Never in human history have so many lived so long. Data suggests that if we reach 65 years of age, it's likely we'll live to 85. We're living longer, and we're having fewer babies.
The aging society is about the fact that you have larger proportions of people over the age of 60 than you have who are under the age of 15.
And it's not just America that's an aging society. Europe, China, Japan, we're an aging globe. An aging society isn't just about old people. It's not just about baby boomers. Gen X will likely live longer, and so will millennials.
The baby boomers are an introduction to what will be a permanent shift. It is not the pig and the python, a large snake that swallows a pig, and you see that bulge going through the snake and then coming out the other end eventually. Well, ours never comes out the other end. This is a permanent state we're now in a remarkable shift.
And the shift will utterly transform our society. How and how long we work, how and where we live, how we organize our families, medical care, economic and political lives, how we organize our thinking. This will give you an idea of what's ahead. Right now, about half of us live in the suburbs, and it's where 75% of older Americans live and want to continue to live. But suburbs were designed in the 1950s for young families, and the car. There's a disconnect there we have to deal with.
It's an old rule of thumb that if you can make the community work for kids, and if you can make the community work for the elderly, that it will work for everyone else.
Same with how we work. We think of 65 as a retirement age engraved in stone. But when Social Security was enacted in 1935, average life expectancy was only 62, 3 years less than retirement age. Today, we can expect to live about 15 years beyond traditional retirement age.
There isn't anything in the psychology literature that suggests that it's good for people to go on vacation for decades.
Even if it were a good thing, few of us imagine retirement as a vacation anymore. Most of us haven't saved enough, and we're all worried, for good reason, about Social Security and Medicare. What if we reimagined our standard life course? We think of it now in 3 age-segregated boxes. Age 0 to maybe 25, childhood and education. Age 25 to 65, work, and more of it, raising a family, always crunched for time. Age 65 and beyond, little work, lots of rest. What if we imagined that that third box would start just 3 years before life expectancy today, say around 75, not 65? What if we worked less in the middle of life and longer at the end? And what if we looked at aging and even our own mortality square in the eye?
Children in American society historically have only suffered losses that relate to their parents for the most part. But today and tomorrow, they're going to suffer the losses of great-grandparents, of parents, of grandparents, and so on.
So here's the point. The world we live in, the people we've become, demographically speaking, are way different from 1935 or 1950 or even 1970. But our institutions, economies, policies, Social Security, Medicare, our communities, work, all were designed for who we were 50 years ago. They don't work for us today. So, are there rough waters ahead?
When we think about an aging society, everybody swoons. And oh my God. You know, they write articles about defusing the demographic time bomb. Why is there an assumption there is no upside?
Maybe because the upside requires change. Change we have to design, legislate, wrap our heads around.
As a psychologist, I'll tell you the very first step that is really essential, and that's that we begin to envision new models, new ways of being, new lives.
How will we come of age in an aging America? The conversation begins.
Suggest that it's good for
You know,
people
they
to go
write
on
articles
vacation
about
for
defusing the
Large
demographic time bomb.
This is a permanent state we're now in.
So I'll let you integrate and take that in. This is a really exciting moment of transformation and change and opportunity, and a great segue into the urgency and the excitement of this conversation around fostering livability. So Commissioner Porter, I'll turn it over to you.
Great, thank you. And a lot of great comments in the chat. So thank you all for your active participation here. So Dr. Alexander Kalash is a medical epidemiologist specializing in the study of aging. So for the last decade, he's been the president of the International Longevity Center of Brazil. He formerly directed the World Health Organization Global Aging Program at its Geneva headquarters. He's also the one who inspired the visualization exercise we did at the beginning of the session. So let's hear from Dr. Kalash about what age-friendly community might look like.
Age-friendly is an environment that will listen to the voice of older people, will include them in the process of formulating policies, and where they will be respected, empowered, their rights will be observed. If we do that, we can transform the policies for the 4 things that are essential: health, participation, lifelong learning, knowledge, and then the security, the protection that one person needs to have quality of life as that person ages.
Great. So now it's your turn. We'd love you to answer the question, what does aging, dementia, and disability inclusivity mean to you? So if you're willing, type some words that come to mind in the chat and we'll keep an eye on those.
Yeah. Commissioner Porter, the last time you and I had the privilege of doing this, we were in a room together live. We were at the Connecticut Conference of Municipalities, and both this exercise as well as the one that you did at the beginning generated some robust conversation. So while we're waiting for people to write, and again, please click on the chat button. With respect to the exercise you did at the beginning, it's really powerful, right? When you ask people to do this guided visualization around the birthday, I'm remembering some themes that came up in the room were people were in a special place. It might have been outdoors, it might have been a favorite travel spot. Everyone was surrounded by loved ones. So this vision we have in our mind of what aging looks like compared to the data and the reality of both systemically how people's journeys sort of glide them into institutional long-term care, which is valuable and important for some people, but not everyone. So it's a really exciting moment to see what opportunities planning and zoning and community leadership have to make Connecticut communities places that we all can age. And I see some great things happening in the chat. So I don't know, Commissioner Porter, if you want to comment on any of the things that you're seeing that people are saying.
Yeah, there's a lot of great comments, things about respect and access and support, making sure that we're just reframing and understanding what the needs are. And I can't wait to go back in because they're coming up so fast to go back in and kind of read through them all, but lots of ideas around this paradigm shift that we have to make.
That's great. Well, we're going to be saving the chat and we'll send it out with all of the materials after the webinar because we've been thinking hard about this question around what makes an aging dementia and disability inclusive community and trying to come up with a framework. So we have an answer. It's a moment in time answer, and I'm hoping that our model will continue to be shaped and evolved by the conversation. So please keep writing your comments because you're helping define not just who we are now, but who we're going to become. So I'll begin by talking about the World Health Organization's response to this answer. So I mentioned in 2007, the World Health Organization really began this work, and to do so, they convened focus groups of older people, caregivers, and service providers. You can see their work was broad across 33 cities and 22 countries to provide a global framework around age friendliness. Now, in conversations, when we talk a bit about the idea of what we need to be aging supportive or aging inclusive, age friendly, there are a lot of different words. Most people will go straight to thinking about services, meals on wheels, medical transportation. That's where a lot of people's minds go. And those are all really critical and important. But this whole framework really seeks to elevate our minds and conversations beyond services into this broader container of thinking about not just services, but also the built environment and the social environment. So these different areas, which the World Health Organization calls domains of livability, you can see encompass housing, outdoor spaces and buildings, transportation, civic participation and employment, communication and information, respect and social inclusion, social participation, and health services and community supports. So this model was our starting point for conversation. And then through our own process of stakeholder engagement and conversation with lots of different people across Connecticut, the Connecticut Age Well Collaborative took this basic model, modernized it a bit, because this was, as you can see, created in 2007, and adapted it and right-sized it for Connecticut. So this is where we landed on the left. We have 10 different topical areas that build off of the 8 that the World Health Organization model presented to us. So what are some things that are different from the model that you just saw? So the collaboratives framework creates an explicit category around equity, inclusion, and belonging. It goes beyond healthcare to include health, well-being, and food systems. It has a new emphasis on technology as a critical component of information and communications, as we all experienced firsthand during the pandemic, and it's the enduring legacy of those shifts. We go beyond outdoor spaces to include all public spaces. That includes downtowns as well as businesses. We look at employment as part of a larger category of economic opportunity that also includes economic security. We expand social participation to include cultural engagement. And we added a brand new category to consider public safety and preparedness. We recognize the importance of families and care partners in addition to affected individuals. And probably most significantly, we transcend the phrase age friendly. And again, our program is all about encompassing aging, dementia, and disability inclusivity. So this is our foundation. This is the framework from which all of our work emanates, and we invite you to help us continue refining it. So based on that, what's our action plan? What are we going to do? We're really excited. We have some great thoughts, and we're also hoping to bring you all along in the spirit of co-creation and make sure that everything that we do is serving the communities and informed by the communities that this is intended to support. So before we delve more deeply into our action plan, we thought it would be helpful to ground you in the reality of the population that we're looking at. So we're going to watch one more video that asks the question, what does old look like? We'll be interested to hear your answer and your thoughts after you watch it.
Hey, how's it going? You can stand right there, that's your mark. How you doing?
I'm great, how are you?
Great.
Awesome.
Just tell us your first name and your age.
My real age?
My name is Paolo. I'm 25 years old.
My name is Daniela, and I'm 19.
24. 35.
31. 33.
I'm 26 years old.
What age do you consider to be old?
Late 40s.
Maybe 50.
I feel like 30 is a new 20, so I'd say like 40 is old.
I'd probably say 50s.
I'd like you to show me how an old person would cross the street. Show me how an old person would send a text message. How might an old person do a push-up? What about jumping jacks? Okay, hang on. There's someone I want you to meet.
Hello, I'm Birch. I'm 66.
Hi, I'm Daphne, and I'm 68.
I'm Dee, and I'm 55.
George Fassbinder, 75.
Wow. My name is Parvati. I'm 70.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you.
We're gonna give you about 2 minutes to teach each other something that you are good at.
I can teach you a jump that I do.
Okay, please.
Both of your legs go up, and your arm goes up, and your left arm goes like to the side. Ready?
Okay.
1, 2, 3. Lift 1, 2, 3. And bring it to your heart. And bring it to your heart. Add the head in. Yeah.
You want to try to get your balance and raise up. Now, you can bring your legs and your feet up. It's hard, right?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7. So when you come out of a turn, either way, you go back to that basics.
Over. Now forward. Over. Yeah.
Square it like this, and give me a hook. Hook. Jab, cross, hook, and then we'll go like this. All right?
1, 2, 3.
Now, what age might you consider to be old?
Probably 80 or 90. He could just do everything that I told him to do.
An age that I would consider to be old now might be 100.
Do you remember what you said?
Yeah, I said in the 50s. I thought that would be old. But when I thought about it, like...
Wait a minute. I can do it. It really changed my thinking of what old is.
You've taught me something today. Clearly, there's no way she's old, you know?
Now I know from today, hey, I don't look at age.
At my age, I feel like I did when I was in my 20s.
There's so many things that I still want to do. There's so many things that I can do. As long as I'm growing,
and learning, then age doesn't matter.
When people start stopping, that's when they start getting old.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. Thanks,
Thank you.
Daphne.
It was great meeting you.
How long have you been doing this? Is this a new skill?
40 years.
Wow.
So I hope that whets your appetite for our next webinar, which will be in February. We'll talk more about that later in the importance of disrupting ageism and ableism. But I hope that your heart is really open now to the importance of this action plan and this work and the power of that particular video, right? We all live in stories that for the most part aren't ours, that society has fed us through maybe small, isolated, lived experience. But when we expand our horizons and when we deeply interact with others, it really changes our perspective. I'm also noticing that the chat is alive and well. I see people's hands going up. So I just wanted to take a moment to sort of walk people through our plan. We have a few more prepared slides. We then have a couple of panelists that are going to talk about from the municipal on the ground perspective where they are in this work. And then we're going to have an interactive space. So we're in webinar mode right now, but people will have an opportunity to speak. We'll talk to one another. So to the extent that you have questions, hold them, because I want to make sure that we can all thrive, not just in your questions and answering them, but you'll inspire others to ask questions and come up with great answers as well. So the Connecticut Age Well Collaborative's action plan at this moment is defined by 5 key areas. So the first, again, in this spirit of making sure that we're always grounded in the communities that we're serving, or to inform efforts with lived experience and co-create. We'll talk more about how we're going to do that later in the webinar. To raise awareness, you're here at the beginning of a process of statewide education to provide direct technical assistance and resources and support to communities. To celebrate and scale action, we hope you'll all join us at the Capitol Complex in April for an event where we're going to be giving out our first annual Wellspring Awards to communities who have already for some time been doing great work to celebrate aging, dementia, and disability inclusivity policy and practices. And then through partnership with academic organizations to evaluate rigorously to inform scalability. So this is our work over the next 2 years, and we hope beyond. So in terms of education and awareness, you are all at this launch event. It's really the platform and transition point to move into 2023, where we'll be launching what we're calling the Connecticut Age Well Collaborative's Age Well Academy. So I hope that you all agree, based on what you've seen so far, that our communities are indeed stronger when they include the full scope of our energy, including the contributions of older adults, individuals living with Alzheimer's disease and related dementias, as well as individuals with disabilities. If you go to our website, you can register for our next 5 events. We encourage municipalities to send teams of individuals across different sectors within municipal government to attend, not just those in social services, and we're doing work in senior centers, but also planning and zoning officials, town planners, those who work in transportation and housing, so that we can all come together and start deepening and cultivating this aging, dementia, and disability lens. Please also know that we'll be providing special recognition and awards to participants that join us for all 5 events in 2023. This is also a launch event in that each one of these webinars has associated with it a report that we're releasing. So today we're releasing Fostering Aging, Dementia, and Disability Inclusivity. It's the first in our series of resource guides. You can download it at ctagewellcollaborative.org, click on resources, and contains a lot of the information that you're hearing in today's webinar and more. And then in terms of our future events, all of which are eligible for certified Connecticut municipal official credit in partnership with the Connecticut Conference of Municipalities. You can see our next 5 events to the right. So if you enjoyed that video from AARP, our entire webinar in February is all going to be about reframing the aging, dementia, and disability narrative. As you saw, there's a very strong bias, implicit bias, that somehow aging, dementia, and/or disability are inevitably associated with decline, with frailty, and a sense of disvaluing. So we're looking forward to disrupting that story and celebrating everybody's contributions, and even the somewhat radical societal notion that all of those vehicles can be places of growth, and maybe even thriving. I also mentioned that in April, we'll be having our first annual Sharing and Celebration Summit at the State Capitol Complex, and that's going to be in partnership with the Commission on Women, Children, Seniors, Equity, and Opportunity. It's our only in-person event of these 5, and it'll be a tremendous opportunity to showcase and shine light on the incredible work of local government to state legislators. The third event, Understanding Your Community, an interactive data tool. So for those of you who joined us at the beginning, you'll note in the chat, there was a link that was dropped into your community's healthy aging profiles. We'll be deeply engaging with that tool to translate data into practice with a strong emphasis on looking at planning and zoning, as well as housing opportunity associated with whatever the demographic realities are in your community, and help you all think proactively. How do we plan, and how do we address the notion that 70% of Connecticut's housing stock is single family with bedrooms on the 2nd floor, given shifting demographic realities? The 4th of this series is called Practical Action for Aging, Dementia, and Disability Inclusivity. At that webcast, you'll be hearing from communities who are participating in a number of very successful programs. There's, we already mentioned AARP's National Age Friendly Network. There's Dementia Friendly America. And then many of you might be familiar with Sustainable CT, a voluntary certification program that encourages municipalities to accelerate local sustainability actions. So all of those will be woven together into a resource guide that provides a practical roadmap for communities on how to create the conditions where people who are aging, have dementia, and disabilities can thrive. And then lastly, we're really excited about our webinar that'll be a culmination of a year-long opportunity called the Community Leaders Fellowship. And the participants of that opportunity are going to talk to you all about the importance of honoring lived experience in this journey. So that's a high-level overview. The links are up for all of them, and we encourage you to sign up, participate, and to share with those who you think might be interested. So on that last one, I mentioned that we'll be launching our Community Leaders Fellowship next year. So the Community Leaders Fellowship is an opportunity for people with lived experience of aging, dementia, disability, and their care partners to do a couple of different things. One, to inform our efforts, the groundwork upon which any sort of movement at the local level should be based should start with an honor lived experience. We intend to recruit anywhere from 30 to 40 applicants. If we exceed expectations, that's great. Selecting 10 to 20 of them and then compensating them at $25 an hour to be thought partners on how the work of the Age Well Collaborative moves forward, to empower that group, to hopefully gain some shared learning and some trust building. And then the Connecticut Age Well Collaborative is led by an incredibly talented steering committee of professionals. We look through this process to empower members of the Community Leaders Fellowship with whatever knowledge and tools help them ultimately be able to serve in a position of leadership on the steering committee as well. And then finally, we're hoping that through this experience and whatever we learn, we can share back with communities both substantively, but also from a process perspective, and think about how do we help town government more deeply access the authentic voice of individuals in these populations with specific attention to historically disempowered populations. So stay tuned for more on this. We have a a flyer coming sometime next year, and we'll be looking to all of you to connect to your community centers of power and other grassroots organizations to help lift up the voices who you don't see in town hall. So that's a question to consider when you have, as municipal government, open spaces and meeting, who's not in the room, and what can we do to more deeply access those populations. So with that, I want to turn it back over to Commissioner Porter, and she'll take us into the next segment of our afternoon.
Great, thank you. And again, lots of great things in chat. So thank you for your contributions. Many of you have heard the quote by Helen Keller, "Alone we can do so little, and together we can do so much." These words aren't here only to remind us of everyone's vast potential to make our world shine more brightly, regardless of age or ability, but they're also here to remind us that this work is going to take all of us. So I want to transition now into the conversation portion of our session. We're going to begin by having some dialogue with a few pre-selected panelists, and we invite anyone who wants to participate to join after that. Please type your question or comment into the chat, or tell us that you'd like to speak and we can pop you up onto the screen. So we are joined now by Ken Lesser, Tabitha Harkin, and Stephanie Thoreau. I think we'll be promoting them.
In process right now. And if any of you are having technical difficulties, just let us know. Hi, Ken, welcome. So glad you're here.
Hi, it's nice to see both of you. Thank you for having me.
Great. All right, Ken, so we're going to start with you as a member of the Wethersfield Town Council. Alyssa and I met you earlier this month at the annual convention for the Connecticut Conference of Municipalities. So one question is, what drew you to attend our session?
Well, first of all, Commissioner and Alyssa, thank you for this wonderful presentation. This truly is groundbreaking stuff and is a lot of thought-provoking stuff for all of us. So what drew me to that session were two things. One, as my wife and 3 daughters keep reminding me, I am aging, and I'm looking for strategies and ideas of how I can age well. But two, and more importantly, Commissioner, is to bring strategies to the community, resources, programs, best practices that help all of us age well, and how we can facilitate that from a local government standpoint.
Great, thank you. And I know Wethersfield, you're preparing your next plan of conservation and development. So building on lots of success in your community, like the complete streets and assessing climate vulnerability. What do you see as the value in town government focusing explicitly on aging, dementia, and disability inclusivity?
It's a great question, and I see tremendous value. Wethersfield is one of the oldest towns in Connecticut by average age of the population. Like many towns in Connecticut, our residents want to stay in town, but that has a lot of challenges for us. So 2 key areas I think we can focus on in town government. One is housing. We need to provide more housing for our folks that are aging, that may have dementia, need services, or for disability inclusiveness, and we need strategies around that. And second, an area that I'm particularly interested in, and the video really highlighted this. I love that video, Commissioner and Alyssa, that was done by ARP, and that is intergenerational sharing. Our older folks have so much knowledge, wisdom, and experience to share with all of us, but particularly our younger folks. And our younger folks have that secret sauce of energy, that youthful energy that they can share with our older folks. And I'd love to have some best practices, to learn some best practice around intergenerational sharing that we can do at our town that I think will have tremendous benefits for our older folks who need purpose and need passion. And I think sharing their experiences with younger people can provide that. And I'll leave you with this. I have a friend who is 100 years old in Wethersfield, still drives, and is still a very active volunteer in the community. So it's just great that everything is possible, and I'm excited about the possibilities, and I appreciate the opportunity, Commissioner and Alyssa, to share a few words with everyone.
That's great. Thank you so much, Ken. And you heard Alyssa talking about some of the housing issues that we face kind of across the state. So reiterating that and really finding those opportunities for intergenerational sharing, I think that's huge for us. So thank you so much for joining with us today.
Thank you.
Next, I want to introduce Tabitha Harkin, who's a planner for the town of Groton. So Tabitha, thanks for joining us today.
Hi, everyone. I am a planner for the town of Groton, and I'm excited to be here. Thank you for having me. I think it's a really great conversation we're having around this topic.
Great. And I understand you've been involved in supporting the work of an initiative called Age Friendly Groton. Can you tell us a little bit more about why that's important for Groton?
Sure, Commissioner. Yeah, it's important for Groton because almost half of our population is over 50 and about 14% of our population is over 65, which I think is pretty common in this area. So we see that we have a large contingent of folks that are using our Thrive 55 Senior Center, which is an award-winning senior center. I shouldn't call it a senior center anymore. We call it Thrive 55 Plus. But we offer a lot of great programs, and I can't take any credit for those because those are offered through the Senior Center Director, Mary Jo Riley, who's part of our group. So we formed our group to take a look at those tenets of livability and sign on for the AARP age-friendly community because it just felt like a no-brainer in terms of what we wanted to see happen in our community. And I think the big push being that our community is so rich in open space and historic sites is to create accessibility between those things. So we've talked a lot about sidewalks, bus shelters, lighting, and just making more comfortable, walkable community.
Great, thank you. So what's something that you've learned in the process that you'd want others in local government to know about?
So I'm a planner and I've been doing the public outreach for some time, but the world has really shifted in that regard. So, in doing this planning process and getting the word out, we did a public meeting, a physical public meeting, and not a lot of people came. So we put things online through a community engagement website. We augmented that with social media, did, mailers and newspaper articles. You really have to spread it across a lot of different outlets to get the word out these days.
Great, thank you for sharing that.
Yeah, thank you.
Alyssa, do you want to jump in with?
Yeah, no, it's a fun conversation. And Stephanie, last but certainly not least, I'd like to introduce Stephanie Thoreau, Coordinator of Senior Services and the Municipal Agent for the Elderly for the town of Cheshire. So Stephanie, you've been in this field for about 25 years now. And when we spoke yesterday, one thing that you said was that ageism, tell me if I get this right, ageism is the one thing that's still allowed.
Yeah.
That's a powerful and thought-provoking statement. I was just wondering if you could elaborate a little bit.
Well, I think sometimes people actually think that they're being kind with the things that they're saying. They don't recognize that it can be very condescending. Like I think the thing that we spoke about yesterday is one of the things I hear all the time is, oh, what a cute, sweet little old person, or oh, look at that cute little old person, or something like that. And it reduces that person to almost childlike, and you're not looking at the lived experience. You're not looking at the wisdom this person has. Like the person isn't being recognized for all of their strengths, and and that person has more wisdom than any of us have through their lived experience. And so I don't think it's purposeful. I think people just don't recognize that some of the things that they're saying are insulting. So I think it's kind of shifting that lens a little bit to, like when you showed that video where someone thought like 50 was old, and it's like, or when I hear people say, oh, well, I'm only 55, I can't go to the senior center. Like there still is that stigma attached, and people don't recognize that it's coming across that way.
Right. It's insightful, and why it's the foundation of our entire next webinar in February. We hope that you'll all be there. To pivot, another question that came up for me is I was wondering if you could share a little bit more about what Cheshire is doing to become, we spoke a lot about aging, but what Cheshire is doing to become a more dementia-friendly community.
Yeah, we started the dementia-friendly movement in 2019, just before the pandemic came. So what we did was we partnered with LiveWell at that time in Southington. So, and we went through the dementia friendly training. So it started with the senior center and senior center staff and our transportation staff. And then we pulled all of our volunteers in to go through the dementia training. And a few of us became the dementia champions. We then expanded it through some of the different departments. We have, through the pandemic, we did a few online, and we have a youth and human services committee, which is a multi-generational committee within the town. So we have high school students on that committee, and then we have older, the senior center members on that committee, and everyone in between, and different people from different departments and different people like from, different organizations within the town. And we've been trying to get all of these trainings out there and just educate people and really make people aware of what dementia is and why this needs to be taught and the importance of it. A lot of people don't understand dementia. A lot of people think that dementia is forgetfulness, or they make comments that can be cruel, and they don't understand the complexity of it and how important it is to understand the whole process of it. So we've been slowly working with that, and it's been very well received, which is very nice. And I think it's just an education process, and it's getting different people involved from different areas to bring that information then to their group of people, to then bring it to the next group of people. So we've been doing that, and we're gaining momentum, which is nice. So.
That's great. Well, Ken, Stephanie, and Tabitha, thank you for warming us all up as we transition into this next phase, which was really dialogue. So I'm going to present a framing question, but I want this to be space where anyone can say anything. Given, that we've had a lot of thought-provoking items that have been presented. So if you have responses, reactions that you want to be heard or witnessed, by all means, share them. But my specific question for all of you is the Connecticut Age Well Collaborative is moving into a space of exploring what technical assistance looks like for communities. What do you all most need? And recognizing that we all have limited time and resources, we've been doing some listening over the summer to communities, and we've heard things ranging from, we really want meaningful training for our police department around issues of specific to dementia. If an individual is wandering in the community, we want our police officers to be able to sensitively, thoughtfully, and compassionately respond to that situation. And Greenwich and Southington have been real leaders in the state in that way, but even they have said there's turnover. This is not a one and done situation. There's an ongoing need as staff leaves and new staff comes to keep the conversation alive. We've heard from a number of you that your plans of conservation and development are coming to the end of the 10-year cycle. You're ready to revisit, to reinvigorate. What does it look like to really meaningfully and intentionally include an aging, dementia, and disability lens in your POCDs? So that's my question for all of you. You can respond in the chat. You can also raise your hand to respond, and we'll lift you up as a panelist so that we can see you. So I'll just open the floor up now for whatever calls to be shared. So raise your hand, use the chat, and I'm hopeful that we can all have a really great conversation for the next 20 minutes or so until we wrap up. So who's first? There's so much to say. It's hard to know where to start. So I'm going to look in the chat, but in the meantime, I see we have someone with their hand up. No, it's down again. All right.
There's lots of great stuff going on in chat still.
Right. So while you're,
yeah.
Go ahead, Commissioner Porter. While you're all figuring out the technology, we could lift up some of the conversation happening in the chat.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, reactions to what Ken and Tabitha and Stephanie shared, like people are sharing examples and questions about, about some of the training, but also, people saying, yeah, I hate to be called cute. And just the ageism piece. I like the one where Sheila shared, my mother's 82 and gets on her Peloton daily. The individual that set up her bike for her said she'd never be able to use it. So she took a video of herself using it and sent it to him. It's a good reminder that we can't make judgments about people. We have to let people live their lives and try to figure out a way to support that along the way. So I love that example.
That's great. Also based on some of the conversation that I'm seeing in the chat, I also just wanted to note not just what the Connecticut Age Well Collaborative is, but what we're not. So we are a space of empowerment, of creative incentives, of tools, of providing technical assistance. We're not an advocacy organization. So there are great advocacy organizations in the state, but we're not looking to be the ones to lead the cause to change policy at the statewide level or the local level. We're simply a resource here for you that obviously have a really compelling case for why this is important, but really want to honor each town's process in terms of what feels salient and important locally, all steeped in evidence-based practices and policies. So I thought it would be helpful to name that. I also see a few additional questions. There was one that says, how can we address transportation needs so people can age in place in their homes and not have to move? It's a great and important question, and the answer varies on what kind of community you live in and its connectivity to public transit and other transportation planning. So Ken, Stephanie, and Tabitha, you don't have to answer. I don't want to put you on the spot, but I'm wondering, this is something we're all grappling with. If you had any thoughts, whether successes or challenges in thinking about transportation as it relates to people with disabilities, dementia, and as well as older adults.
Well, I know we participate in the 5310 grant program. So we have the 12 passenger buses that, in town. So people with disabilities and our older population have access to our transportation services within the town. So we have 4 12 passenger buses and a car that are available to people with, full-time staff driving them and taking people around to do what they need to do. And we don't only go in town, we also take to doctor's appointments and things like that out of town. So it's a start. So, that has helped us significantly because there would be no other way that we could do it. So.
Thank you for that, Stephanie. Ken or Tabitha, anything that you want to add?
I would just jump in and say our transportation, our multimodal transportation options are pretty sparse. So we talk about bus service, but it isn't as robust as it could be, and it is a part of our action plan. So when it gets down to the more fine-tuned details of how disabled or dementia folks are using that, we haven't quite gotten there yet.
Okay, that's great. Thank you. I'm going to keep lifting things up in the chat, but I'm going to offer you now, right? So I raised the bar too much. I used the word panelist and that scared you all, which would have meant you just would have been on camera. But I think there's something really valuable and precious about each of you having this dialogue in your own voices. So you can stay in attendee mode and I could just let you talk. So if that's like a game changer for you, your hair doesn't look good, no one will see you. You can say what you're saying in the chat, but out loud. So please raise your hand if you'd like to say something, even if you've already typed it, because I think it makes for a richer conversation in your own voices. But I won't force you, and we could keep doing it this way too. But please be brave and be the first one. There's a lot going on. Yes, somebody whose name is Alyssa too. It's nice to meet a kindred spirit. Hang on one second. Okay. Alyssa, go for it. You just have to unmute.
All right. Hi, guys. My name is Alyssa Matter. I'm the Director of Elderly Services here at the West Haven Senior Center. And I actually just got into this position last year, and I'm really trying to rebuild myself. So when I was invited to come onto this webinar, I was like, yeah, I need to go on this because I need a little bit more information through all of your guys' powerful minds. So I just want to say thank you guys for having this today, because it seems as though it's not just me that needs a lot of help, but everybody else in the state. So I think it's going to be really helpful for you guys.
That's great. Thank you and welcome, and wonderful example to all of us. We can all invoke this idea of beginner's mind and be new again, whether we're actually new or not. So thank you for speaking up. Deb McNall, you're on next.
Thank you.
Hi. Hello, everyone. Good to see Alyssa, Amy, great to see you. I think I've probably been saying this for several years now, and I feel like I have to say it over and over. One thing that I notice observationally in the town that I live in is that I think municipal officials and planning and zoning, perhaps, they're looking at, the people come to them, developers come to them with ideas about development, and they sound like good ideas, like, oh yeah, we need housing for older adults. Sure, but what they end up doing is they keep building these very, very expensive assisted living facilities. Upwards of costing, a person $7,000, $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 a month to live in. And don't get me wrong, we do need assisted living facilities and models like that. But in my town, we have like 7 of them, and we don't need 7 of them. What we need is affordable housing that is accessible, that people can bring services into. And I don't know to fault anyone. I'm not sure I don't know where to educate. I think it's municipal officials. I think it's planning and zoning. But that's like I think it's my biggest pet peeve in my town, is like every time I turn around, they're building another assisted living facility. And it's just like, we have to rethink what housing looks like, and not just jump on the first person that comes into town and says, hey, I want to build this great thing that sounds like it will help everyone. It's not going to help everyone, because people can't afford that. And then also, and I think it doesn't probably need to be said, and I think many towns are focusing on this, but just walkability. It just, I think that is so important, not only for people being able to get around places, but also to allow people to continue to move and to be active safely on streets and around their community. So we didn't do a good job of that in the mid-century, and when we were building all our roads and all of that. And now we have to find a way to build the sidewalks. So thank you for letting me get on my soapbox again about assisted living facilities.
Thank you, Deb. It's a celebrated soapbox, and thank you, Karen Green, for just dropping into the chat. So I had the pleasure just a couple of weeks ago with my colleagues at the Center for Housing Opportunity, as well as AARP Connecticut, to speak at the Partnership for Strong Communities annual conference on affordable housing. And the Center for Housing Opportunity did a really striking study, and the statistic that really stayed with me in that presentation is that, one, we don't have nearly enough affordable housing in the state, but as we build it, considering changing demographics, at least 1 in 3 units will need to be accessible. So Deb, your comments are just so timely, because as surveys overwhelmingly show that people want to age in place and age in community, we really need to address this mismatch of what's being developed versus what community needs are. So if anyone's interested, you can watch the presentation. It's really compelling and also addresses walkability. All right, we're going to do 2 or 3 more questions, and Kevin Ryan, you're up next. Go ahead and unmute yourself. Kevin, are you still there? Are you with us? Okay, maybe not. Let's try again. Try once more to unmute.
Hello there.
Okay, success. Hi, Kevin.
Technology, I'm actually a student at CCSU in the gerontology certification program. I've been enjoying it after a 50-year little hiatus from graduate school. So I am very much an active adult, a senior adult, and so an older adult. My thought is that older adults really need to be encouraged to be more proactive and self-reliant. as you know, the United States really doesn't have an elder reverence component. It's, you can complain about it or go to work on it. And what I think, what I strongly believe that we will live longer. Obviously, the models are all there. Stay healthy, stay vibrant, stay relevant, and stay in the moment. You will live a longer and a more enjoyable life. So what I'm really interested in seeing us develop are tools that have older adults become more appreciative of their acquired wisdom. And I run a little program, actually, as an experiment at the West Hartford Senior Center called Wisdom Road Adventure. It's a monthly gathering. People always say, what's the agenda? And I always say the agenda will evolve in the meeting. The idea, my idea, and it's been interesting to see how it's evolving, is to have older people come together to celebrate and be encouraged to actually take a positive view of themselves rather than a resigned view, which we just talked about the elements of ageism, which older adults are contributing to in their own ways, which is, we got to kind of work on that. They will say, I'm too this or I'm too that. Well, we could help with that. So, so my point is, I'd like to I plan to attend all these as much as I can, all of these sessions, because this is a passion of mine. Enlightened self-interest, I call it. My goal is to live to be 100 at least, and I'm working on it. I'll be 80 next year, so I'm working on that too. But there's a lot to be done, and there's a lot of opportunity out there. So that's my message.
Kevin, thank you so much. Is there any final hand up before we start transitioning to our conclusion? And while we wait to see, I want to acknowledge and celebrate the many collective impact partners who are on the call, as well as municipal colleagues, and then finally colleagues from other states. So those of you who have been tracking the chat see that Massachusetts, as well as Rhode Island, are both here. So there are robust Age Well collaboratives elsewhere in New England. We're early in our work. We celebrate their mentorship, are incredibly grateful for it, and hope that as a state that you're not just looking to other communities within the state, but you avail yourself of the vast work happening locally in other states around the country and also around the world. So with that, I want to thank all of our panelists, and I'm going to share my screen one final time. So if you'll bear with a potentially inelegant transition while you look at the continued and exciting opportunity happening in the chat, because I see there's still lots of great work happening. So I'll So the Connecticut Age Well Collaborative and its 2023 Age Well Academy kicks off with how to reframe the aging narrative, celebrating vitality. Creating thriving, inclusive communities begins with looking deeply at our own unconscious biases. Our next event and municipal resource guide in our series will propose strategies on how we can all work together to address systemic ageism and ableism in our municipal language, policies, and practices, including the latest communications research on how to effectively tell the story of aging, dementia, and disability. It'll also include the release of the new song, We Age Well. Commissioned by the Connecticut Age Well Collaborative, musician and composer Jeff McQuillan worked with us to create the musical theme you're hearing now. Its lyrics, to premiere at our February event, model how we can all disrupt ageism and ableism. To register and learn more, visit ctagewellcollaborative.org. Thank you so much for joining us today and celebrating our vision that in Connecticut, we all can age well. Thanks, everyone.